A very warm welcome to our series SAP BTP in 2025, an exploration of the latest updates offered by the Global User Groups organization. Today's session, SAP BTP Foundation, covers many topics, and I have the pleasure of having here with me the experts to talk about their areas of expertise and answer your questions in the chat. Let me introduce Arne Speck, Product Manager for SAP Business Technology Platform, Boris, Zarske, Product Manager, DevOps, Michael Friedrich, Product Owner, Security Products, Colin Joy, Experienced Architect for SAP BTP, Manuel Balchev, the Product Owner for Unified Connectivity, and Jörg Latzer, VP SAP HANA Product Management. And with this, over to you, Arne.
Thank you so much, Tanya. Thanks also again to all the great speakers. Let me directly jump into our content here as we have a packed agenda today. So in the overall series, we started with the overview. We had sessions for the different topics, and now we're talking here at the bottom on that arrow of platform for foundation. So I already introduced that in my overview session of this series for BTP overall. We are splitting this platform foundation into 5 different subtopics. And this is also the agenda for today. So we will have a short look into all of those 5 subtopics here, starting with runtimes and application lifecycle management. Let's begin with the runtime offering that we're having on BTP. So we have 3 strategic runtimes that we're offering you on BTP, which is on one hand side the ABAP, the Cloud Foundry, and the Schimmer runtime. So basically, yes, it's the basis also for the services that we are operating on BTP. But of course, when it comes to you, our customers or partners leveraging that, question is now always closely related to our application development. So we have here the link to the developer's guide. We're using our cloud programming models with CAP and the ABAP cloud model. But let's dive a little bit deeper now into the different runtimes and what's the difference and where can you use it for. So first of all, let's start with the ABAP environment. So already the name says it, it's not only runtime. It's a full-featured environment that comes also, for example, with its own persistency, with HANA integrated into the ABAP environment. It comes also with its own Fiori Launchpad. Nevertheless, it is completely integrated into BTP and uses also a lot of foundational services you will hear later on. So what is it best for when to use that? So the ABAP environment, we clearly see when it comes to S/4HANA extensions that need an independent life cycle of your S/4 application itself, be it to very fast changes because of very innovative projects, or if you have users that do not have an S/4 user that you still want to have integrated into your processes here, or maybe scenarios spanning across several different S/4 systems. And of course, the great thing here is also that you can leverage your HANA developers from your S/4 system to use them to create your applications and extensions here. Now, when it comes to cloud native development on BTP, we offer 2 options. The first one is the Cloud Foundry environment. So what are the advantages here? The advantage here is that it is really, really simple and you do not need advanced knowledge into runtime specifics. So basically, your developers can really focus on creating applications in different languages, following our cloud application programming model, and then really have a very easy deployment process here without any further required knowledge. And basically it covers, if we look at our typical customers, around 80 or above 80% of all the scenarios that we see being delivered or developed here. But then on the other hand side, there are also those maybe 20% of more complex requirements to the runtime. And this is when Schimmer comes into play. So Schimmer, and you see it here, it's a modularized a runtime based on Kubernetes, where you have different modules that support you also when you have specific requirements. Like, for example, you want to have a microservices-based solution, or you want to have serverless functions developed. Or if you have, let's say, enhanced runtime requirements, for example, in the area of scaling, then BTP Schema really offers you all the possibilities of the most modern runtimes that you can think of to really be the runtime option that helps you delivering all your different or on your different requirements. If you want to have a more deep dive comparison, especially between those two cloud native options, there is the link in the deck, so you will get the slides afterwards with this runtime guide that clearly outlines then the differences and makes it easier for you to do a decision here, which is the right choice for you. Now, talking about a little bit development and then the option on where to deploy, I'm handing over now to my colleague Boris, who is actually telling you a little bit about the processes, how to deploy and how to operate then your custom applications later on. Boris, up to you.
Thanks a lot, Arne. Yes, exactly. So in the second offering of this subtopic, I will outline how you can apply Agile DevOps principles for your development on the Business Technology Platform. And it's depicted here on this slide. So we start in the lower left corner on the first step where you set up an automated pipeline. And the good thing is that the SAP BTP Foundation brings here the SAP Continuous Integration and Delivery Service. It's really a pipeline as a service offering, meaning you can come up with a running build, test, and deploy pipeline in minutes for typical SAP BTP development use cases. And that is then used in the upper left corner under step 2 by the development team, meaning they use the development environment and push the changes into a Git-based repository, which then triggers the pipeline run, perform then the corresponding build process and the test, and provides the direct feedback on the quality of the change to the developer, meaning you come up with a change and you get direct feedback. And those tests that can be automatically performed comprise, of course, unit tests, meaning does the change from a functional point of view do what it is intended to do, but also in terms of security, compliance, and so on. So you really get deep dive feedback on the overall quality. And when you then come up with a qualified release candidate, you have then the option to hand over into the delivery landscape. That's step 3 in the lower right corner, where we say, okay, instead of directly deploying in typical enterprise environments, you might want to have more control towards production, meaning you can centrally define a delivery landscape with permissions, who's allowed to perform changes on which nodes, with central log file for auditing reasons, and also with the option to orchestrate those changes. And that's where we come already to the upper right corner under step 4 by change management capabilities like offered from SAP Solution Manager or SAP Cloud ALM. They can bring together changes from different environments, like from Business Technology Platform together with changes in your backend systems, and synchronize the delivery across those environments. That's the whole concept. Next slide, please. That's because that's really important. I want to outline that a little bit further. So we really want to differentiate between the development landscape based on continuous integration principles, meaning you have a pipeline, you have very tight feedback loops, get direct feedback on the outcome. The whole environment can be managed and owned by the development team with very low cognitive load. That's what this pipeline as a service offering does bring from the foundation, and with the goal to verify the single developer changes, highly automated. And as soon as you come up with the qualified release candidate, then we have to hand over into this delivery landscape, then based on more strict change and transport management rules, who's allowed to perform changes, when are changes allowed to be performed, centrally managed by the ops teams or approvers, with the goal then to verify the release candidate. And again, this might comprise of changes from BTP, from several teams, but also from other environments in the end. And where you might have a delivery manager, depending on your demand, that says, okay, I now checked that everything comes together and can approve that this can now be propagated towards production. And I want my decision also to be stored inside the system for auditing reasons. That's the idea. And that is empowered also by the SAP BTP Foundation as outlined here. Next slide, please. And yeah, the interplay for this hybrid interplay you see here again in the lower left corner, we see again the pipeline talking together with the continuous the cloud transport management service. And to the right, we might have changes on this example from your backend system that is handled by the change and transport system of the ABAP stack. And now we could have change and deployment management capabilities from Cloud LM that do orchestrate the delivery in both environments in a synchronized way. Next slide, please. So after we have provided the changes into the production environment with the right level of control, you then want to make sure that you do provide the application with the right level of availability and performance. And for that, I've extended slightly the upper right corner here with additional services because we have as central offering, for example, SAP Cloud ALM as BTP operations platform, but it does work closely together with local observability services. We have here, for example, SAP Alert Notification Service, where you can subscribe to events and then get them shown up in Cloud LM. We have, for example, Automation Pilot, where you can then trigger automation flows, like for alert remediation. Those two services will be covered by Colin in the last part of our session today. And we have also, for example, SAP Cloud Logging, where you then can see what is happening there. Next slide, please. The concept is outlined here. So we have BTP with all the different use cases, and they all expose telemetry data. And the good thing is we have a harmonized approach, meaning the telemetry data does show up both in the central observability offering for problem detection and in the local tools for problem resolution. So it's all based on the same databases. And of course, the concept again is here with the central observability that is see the holistic view, even if your application should consist of different parts running in different environments. But you see, okay, is there, for example, a service degradation, and in which part is it? And then I can jump directly from there into this local observability to deep dive on the root cause. Next slide, please. No worries, we won't go through that in full steam, but just to give you an impression, SAP Cloud LM is not part of SAP BTP Foundation, but we have that very close interplay. And you see in the upper part of this slide that Cloud LM does cover not only BTP, but also the other SAP solutions, meaning it really allows you to have that holistic view on what is going on with your application, even if it should be of hybrid nature. In the left part of the slide, we see that it can ingest different metrics, traces, and events, like, for example, from your applications running on SAP Business Technology Platform. And then that shows up in the problem detection layer, meaning all kind of monitoring, be it exception monitoring, user monitoring, health monitoring, where you see how your application is doing. And then it's getting routed to a problem resolution layer, for example, for central alerting and notification management, but they can then also trigger operation automation, then be executed, for example, on the SAP Business Technology Platform. Next slide. And here, just to give an example of the interplay again, we see in the upper part that we have here on the example of real user monitoring, real transparency on the horizontal layer, meaning you see here, for example, that the user did access an SAP UI5 application running on BTP, then jumping to other locations, and that can also be stuff running in the backend or in other services then. And you get really the overview, and you see exactly, okay, there's something going in the wrong direction, maybe performance degradation, and you see also in which part of the end-to-end scenario you might have to look into. The good thing is you can then directly jump from the central observability directly from SAP Cloud LM into SAP Cloud Logging to perform then a vertical trace of the aspect where you see a service degradation and to identify the root cause. That's the whole concept where we have that very close interplay. And with that, we really have the means to start simple with the pipeline, getting direct feedback, but then also control towards delivery and transparency in terms of monitoring and also applying then root cause analysis and fixing some issues. With that, let's hand over to Michael to look into security aspects.
Thanks, Boris. So security and compliance should be a top requirement for all companies, and as it is for us, and we want to bring that also to our customers. So from a BTP perspective, besides many other topics we do, one key pillar of our strategy is are the built-in security services that we have. So they are the foundation for offering security features where all other BTP services, as well as applications running on top of BTP, rely on, so that we have one common set of security functionalities, don't have to rebuild it in multiple places, and customers can have a common configuration. Most of the services we not only use internally, but we also expose to our customers so that when you develop on BTP, can reuse them and get the same functionality and a consistent view between services application built on BTP from our side as well on your side. So let's look at the next slide and see what services we have. Start on the left-hand side. One important topic and the foundation for everything is user access and permissions. So in order to protect the system, you need to know who your users are, what they are allowed to do. For that, we offer a set of services together called SAP Cloud Identity Services. These are the foundation services, not only for BTP, but for all SAP cloud solutions, and offer consistent authentication via identity authentication. They have a built-in identity directory with like a global user store that can be reused by BTP applications to have like one consistent view on users, closely integrated with AMS, our authorization management system for policy-based authorizations. And as the fourth component, we have the identity provisioning services, which allow to distribute user information from BTP and the identity services to other services if they have an own user store, for example, SuccessFactors, Concur, Ariba. So by reusing those and the authorization and trust management service down there, which is also built in, which then is backed by Cloud Identity, we offer for all BTP services a central entry point for authentication, single sign-on, and as well to enforce authorizations that you can configure in the cockpit as well in the Cloud Identity tool, what users are supposed to do and can do. This is complemented by Customer Data Cloud, our offering for consumer identity management. So while Cloud Identity Services focus on the employee scenarios, with Customer Data Cloud, we also offer functionalities if you build services on BTP to reach out to your end users and then have your consumers, customers on there for proper management of those. Middle pillar is secure connectivity, communications, and encryptions. One big part are the built-in security capabilities that we offer as part of connectivity. I skip them for now. Manuel will provide more details on that later. Yeah. Other services that we offer there are the custom domain service, where companies can configure their own custom domain, which first of all gives like a branding overview, but also allows to specify TLS and security configuration specifically to their own domain and URLs. For persistence of credentials and critical information, we have the SAP Credential Store. So if any information that you need to store is very security relevant, you can use the Credential Store to encrypt them and store them in a secure way. And finally, we have a malware scanning service that provides malware scanning functionalities. So whenever either from our side or from your side, you develop applications that request input from an untrusted source, you should use the malware scanning service to ensure that this is okay to persist and later on get downloaded afterwards. Third pillar on the right-hand side are the compliance services. So there it's kind of two services, or like a suite of two services. The one, the SAP Audit Log service, which is like the central service where all BTP and in the future many SAP services will centrally store their audit logs, so that you have one place for storage with a configurable retention time, one viewer where you can have a look at the audit logs, and one API endpoint where you can integrate your audit logs with your SIM systems for monitoring and security. The second suite is like the SAP Data Privacy Integration service, which offers compliance management for data. So it offers configurable data retention time, reasoning, and with that you have, if you store personal data, you can keep track on those and store the retention perspective of that. That were like the services and the compliance services. Now moving on to compliance and certifications. Building secure software is one, but we also want to make sure that we can show that to our customers, and as well that you can reuse all the security development, but also operations that we do for your compliance parts. That's why we offer many, and the list is growing, certifications and attestations, both on regulations, country-specific, policy-specific. Common ones are ISO 27001, SOC 1, 2, but there are also like other regional or specific certifications on there. You find the full list on the link below in the Trust Center. This on one side gives you kind of confident that we take security and compliance serious. And with the SOC report, if you download a copy, you also get like a deep dive of all the measurements that we do to ensure the compliance. And this will also serve you if you need to be compliant as well, that you have, if you develop on BTP, you have the compliant foundation of BTP and only have to build on top of that. With that, looking at the next slide, an important part is the shared responsibility model. So while for BTP, and we offer and cover many of the security mechanisms on our side, and that specifically, if you see the start from the lower part, that on the infrastructure layer, we or the hyperscaler takes care, and all the cloud operations, which is done by us. But there are also some aspects customers have to be aware of. That's and then depends of whether you reuse an application built by SAP or you develop applications on BTP directly. In both cases, you need to cover the customer application access, and for some parts, there's like some shared responsibility on the operations if you deploy your own parts. For a deeper look, have a look at the shared responsibility model and ensure that you are aware of what we will take care of, which is a lot, but there are also aspects you need to cover. For example, ensure if you that you configure everything correctly, or if you deploy code, that the code is scanned and always up to date, covering the latest security fixes. With that, if we move to the next and final slide, one aspect where we help are the security recommendations. So also based on customer feedback, we built a set of and a web page kind of covering now more than 270 security recommendations of close to 50 services, where we in a table structure put all the recommendations that are available throughout the documentation in like a checklist character for you to review. Based on services, so you can go through and make sure that you follow the best practices and configure everything as needed. To simplify that, we are integrating the recommendations and the current values and any deviations with the SAP Cloud ALM, as mentioned by Boris before, that you in the Cloud ALM system, in the configuration and security analysis, you can have a deep dive look of that's the actual configuration settings, and this is compliant or should be changed. With that, let's move on to Jörg and the persistence.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. and Arne has already moved on. So we talked a lot about the different features and functions of the BTP, and we heard at the beginning that there is some central persistency, and that is HANA Cloud. As a native database implementation that is routing back to what many of you might know as the HANA on-premise or the HANA platform version, with HANA Cloud being the de facto standard of BTP for persistencies. And HANA Cloud contains most of the features that we know from the on-premise version. It is an in-memory database that has a so-called native storage extension that allows to unload data from memory to a cheaper storage. So we deliver a data pyramid sort of layers that allow customers to store data in the most efficient, the most TCO or the least TCO type of storage. And that's why we also see a data lake that now also supports file storage and not only a relational storage that allows customers to store data on native files and not only in so-called, say, like a database. So HANA Cloud scales elastically. That means that you can add and remove in a very dynamic way additional compute nodes that allow you to elastically scale and cover peak workloads, for example, if you have month-end activities. So HANA, as it is in the on-premise version, contains multiple engines, like the spatial engine, like the graph engine, but we have added additional engines like the vector engine and just recently the knowledge graph engine, which allow customers to also use and build AI scenarios, which you see also on the left side, where HANA Cloud is also supporting all activities that we do around so-called SAP Business AI. Still, we have the vector store, we have the JSON doc store now being stored on a file storage. So all the multi-model engines that make HANA so powerful. We also have the capabilities for advanced analytics like generative AI, which is represented by vector engine and graph. As storage types, we have the machine learning with that huge number of hundreds of machine learning algorithms that are implemented via the predictive analysis library. We have modeling capabilities, as we all know, also from the on-premise version that is in the market since 12 years now. So what do we do with HANA Cloud? We run applications, so most of SAP's applications and almost all BTP services run on HANA Cloud. So it is the de facto persistency for applications and services in the SAP world. It is also a foundation for the recently announced SAP Business Data Cloud, also here combining with Databricks as an important underlying persistency for this new service offering. And then last but not least, of course, with the knowledge graph engine that we have recently implemented, it's also supporting all SAP Business AI initiatives. If we move on to the next slide, we see that at the end, you could argue that we add intelligence to every application by integrating enterprise data. You see on the lower part here, we connect to SAP on-premises systems. We connect to applications in a side-by-side scenario, implementing what's called the clean core concept. We can connect to third-party data sources, being on-premises, being in the cloud. And then we can interact on a very natural way by different UI capabilities like building Fiori apps, using low-code, pro-code technologies with SAP build codes, but also connect third-party tools, in particular in the analytics world, to a HANA Cloud instance to run analytical scenarios if you're not using SAC, which of course runs best with HANA Cloud. And internally, we use Gen AI capabilities, we use dimension multi-model processing capabilities, we use the machine learning capabilities to create and build context-aware applications where we infuse these AI capabilities. We have, with the vector engine, we can reduce the hallucinations and come to much better results when using large language models. So we gather knowledge from multiple applications. We use that data and we provide it in a very interactive and very natural way by the various UX technologies. Next slide, to give you a quick of an idea of what are our key strategic priorities. So for customers running SAP HANA on-premise, we provide online migration capabilities, which currently focusing on data migration. We will extend that into design time migration. We will offer an intelligent migration assistance that is using AI capabilities to further help customers on their way to HANA Cloud from an on-premise HANA instance. We integrate with BTP, SAP Build technologies to offer a better integration when it comes to development, so developer efficiency, be it low-code, no-code development, be it the integration of the Gen AI toolkit for SAP Build code, which is then highly integrated with HANA Cloud as well. From a price performance perspective, we are working on what's called a cost allocation framework. We saw a little bit of this telemetry data. This goes into a similar direction as where we offer customers very decent analysis capabilities to understand where are they consuming cost units, capacity units in their HANA Cloud instance to efficiently steer the way how they set up their HANA Cloud instance by, for example, adding elastic compute nodes and peak times, using multi-tenancy capabilities that we have just recently added that allow us to build applications in a multi-tenant way using schema-based tenancy, so a lightweight tenancy, multi-tenancy compared to what we have on-premise, but definitely tiered and targeted for cloud applications. And then I mentioned that we add in automation and intelligence to HANA Cloud and for administrators to use AI technologies to understand workloads, to anticipate workloads, to optimize the setup of the HANA system by using ECN, by the way how you put data on the native storage extension, the way how you design tables, how you partition tables. So this is all being extended by AI-based technology that helps the administrators to optimize the performance and optimize TCO for their HANA Cloud system. And then, of course, advanced analytics. One of the core capabilities we will we will continue to invest into the machine learning capabilities. We will provide integration in science workbenches, native knowledge graph capabilities. So adding more capabilities that allow customers to build applications with Gen AI or infusing Gen AI technologies, as well as using that for running the HANA Cloud instance as well. So that's kind of the core of our strategic priorities. You see that there's a link at the bottom that links to the external roadmap Explorer, where you see what's coming in the next quarters. And with that, I hand it over to Manuel for the connectivity side of the house.
Thank you, Jörg. So connectivity, this is a group of very technical services. So starting with destination service, it is a part of SAP BTP connectivity, actually an integral part of it. And as it is a technical service, I'm going to use some solution diagrams to trying to depict and for you and better understand the purpose and the need and how it helps to the application and services. So basically, the service main purpose is to help with technical connection configuration management for application and services, so that they don't hard code it in the code itself, but it's externalized and everything is encrypted, secure, protected, including customer managed keys if the customer is demanding a specific customer key for encryption purposes. The service is using three main entities at this time, so-called destinations. These are aware of as terminology from old ABAP days. So that's the representation on BTP of the same paradigm. So basically, it's a key value parameters which helps the application or the service to find and to reach out to the target system or application. The service is a central one. It is consumable from any environment on and beyond BTP. Of course, when the workload is running on BTP, like extension applications, they can benefit from native consumption of the service, for example, via transparent proxy or cloud SDK, just as example. The service itself also helps with runtime capabilities, facilitating access token retrieval for those systems who are protected with OAuth or SAML or such more complex authorization mechanism, so that logic and code is offloaded from the application and delegated to the service for server-side execution. Okay, next slide, please. The next service is a connectivity service. It's kind of a sibling service for destination service, which is focused primarily for connecting applications from the cloud towards private environments like classical premise or virtual private cloud environments on top of the hyperscalers. It's important to mention that this service operates on L7 from the OCI layers, and it is therefore hyperscaler agnostic. So with a single cloud connector, as you can see on the diagram, you can reach out to many cloud environments irrespectively of the hyperscaler provider. The service is central as control plane and distributed in terms of architecture for the data plane. And on the diagram, you can see on the right side, specifically for Kima and generally speaking about any Kubernetes environment, there is a so-called module connectivity proxy, which can be used to achieve the same capability as if the workload was running, for example, on Cloud Foundry, where this particular component is offered as a service. Multiple protocols are supported for native processing, which means that specific ACLs based on the protocol can be applied, and therefore the premise systems or those private systems that are strictly valuable and highly controlled by administrators, only the relevant data is exposed to the cloud and not everything. The service itself, it's natively consumable via destinations. That's why I mentioned there is a close integration between the services via so-called proxy type on premise, and as well as from the transparent proxy, where we can see that many things are simplified and automated. Speaking about environments and runtimes, the service itself is consumable from Cloud Foundry, ABAP, Kima, including S4 and IBP. So on all those environments, there is a native consumption, therefore making it very easy and simple to consume. At the same time, secure. For Kima specifically, this module, connectivity proxy, is offered as a native module, which means that you as a customer or application developer, you can simply enable, configure, and use it, and that's it. SAP takes care about SLAs to make sure that the component is running, to notify you in case of troubles, etc. Next slide, please. Moving on to the transparent proxy, which I mentioned already a couple of times, and this is basically the entry point from simplicity and unification standpoint. So if you would like to implement an application which doesn't care where the remote target is residing, whether it's an application in the internet or whether it's a next application hosted on a sibling runtime on BTP, or such that is privately hosted in the customer premise. This can be achieved using transparent proxy. As the name suggests, you don't see it at runtime. It's there, it functions, it serves the purpose, but you as an application, you simply see the remote systems as if those are running locally to your workload. This is achieved through the capabilities of Kubernetes and specifically Kubernetes services. So having this in mind, if you use some kind of a mesh software in the cluster like Istio, you can easily integrate any system to your service mesh in the cluster. Similarly to connectivity proxy, it is available as native Kima module, and it is also possible to deploy it on a custom environment based on Kubernetes. Next slide, please. SAP Private Link is another connectivity service on BTP, which is more close to the hyperscalers. Its main purpose is to provide a private in terms of isolated network access between cloud applications that are running on BTP and the hyperscaler account of the customer of the same hyperscaler provider that runs some private services. Private in this case means that the traffic remains under the responsibility and isolation of the hyperscaler, which means that if the client and the server run on the same hyperscaler region, this means that the traffic will not go over internet in any kind of means. This is ensured by the hyperscaler. And if the hyperscaler supports cross-region private linking, this will also be leveraged by the customers who are consuming SAP Private Link. The service itself basically creates private endpoints next to the client side, which means BTP environment. It makes sure those are properly configured, etc. And then the so-called private link gets established. Currently, Azure and AWS are the supported AWS hyperscaler providers, and the service is consumable from Kubernetes and Kima. It's important to mention that this service operates on L3 and L4 level. So this is important from customers that are sensitive to protocol processing, exposure of whole systems, etc. Next slide, please. SAP Master Data Integration, it is a kind of a connectivity service, but sitting on a higher level. So we took a look for the other lower level technical services. Those are very generic, and any kind of integration can be built on top. And this is a notable example where it is related to the variety of SAP systems that are out there, and each has its own data model. And there is a challenge to simplify all this. And that's why the so-called SAP One Domain model has been invented. And key component of SAP Master Data Integration Service, where this is a common domain model that can be mapped to any system-specific model. Therefore, applications can centrally integrate with the service instead of having point-to-point integrations. This simplifies a lot the whole integration, and also allows easy extensibility, filtering, and mapping of different entities. Next slide, please. And last of the group of the connectivity services is the SAP Cloud Application Event Hub. This service, again, is based on some of the other previous mentioned services, for example, destination service, and it is solving the problem of eventing in between SAP applications. With eventing, I mean that in some applications, certain business object has been created or modified, and this is required to be known by a consumer of that object. That may be another SAP application. And instead of having, again, point-to-point integrations, here we have async communication through a centralized event hub, where events are received from the producer. They are kind of buffered, and depending on the capabilities of the consumer of those events, those are processed in a resilient manner, which also helps for building resilient applications in the end. The service itself has integration with other more advanced eventing services, like those coming from SAP Integration Suite, and helps further integrations to be built on top of it, and therefore increase the landscape of services and applications which can intercommunicate through those events. And with that, handing over to Colin.
Thank you very much, Manuel. So now that we have explored some of the BTP Foundation portfolio in more detail, we can zoom out again and focus a bit on what we offer in the area of administration and operations. So what you see here is a suite of tools and capabilities that you can use for managing accounts, entitlements, lifecycle of service instances, as well as a suite of tools for automation that really lets you operate the platform at scale with centralized configuration and enterprise level governance. So to start, let's have a look at the BTP cockpit. The BTP cockpit is our central administration console for the BTP. It covers a wide set of capabilities spanning from the management of accounts and entitlements, working with specific BTP services, some of which are integrated directly in the BTP cockpit or can be provisioned and configured from it. The cockpit is also where you can find a detailed breakdown of usage information, which gives you the transparency that you need to then be able to manage usage and cost on the platform. Next slide, please. So one tool that's really important here for managing cost is our fine granular entitlements and quota management that we have. So if you look at the service marketplace, where we offer a wide selection of services and subscriptions available to use. And here, those that have been entitled to the account are shown and can be provisioned and configured via a generic UI that is provided on top of the service manager. To give you the ability to precisely control what services can be used and to what extent, you have this fine granular control with the entitlements and quota. And this works alongside our flexible account model. So let's take a look at the account model. On this slide, you can see an example of such an account structure. We start on the top with a global account that represents your contract with SAP. Below that, you have a lot of freedom to structure the account as you need it for your business or to your technical requirements, using directories, using sub-accounts, and choosing from a large set of available geographic regions and infrastructure providers. So you see here on the example, just some of the providers and regions available. Of course, we are also ever expanding this list. Next slide, please. On this slide, you see essentially the same content, but in a more hierarchical presentation, so that you can see really how the different entities fit together. So you start with a single global account, then you have the directories, which you can also nest and which allow you to then centralize some of the configuration. So you do not need to duplicate configuration across multiple sub-accounts, but rather you can maintain configuration once on a directory, and then this will be inherited across many sub-accounts. Moving on, what we have not covered is everything that you find in the BTP cockpit. For that, we do not have time now. But one thing that should be clear is when we talk about BTP cockpit, it is a graphical user interface. And there are, of course, limits to what can be operated by an administrator sitting in front of the keyboard. So that is why we offer a suite of tools and capabilities that really allow you to use the platform at scale. So going through some of these, here we have the BTP command line or BTP CLI, which offers an alternative to the cockpit. On the one hand, for users who prefer working on the command line on the terminal, but then also the CLI is really well suited for using in scripting, where you also have machine-readable responses, and that allows you to build quite complex automation. And most of the capabilities that you need, you will also find in the CLI today. On the next slide, we look at the BTP Terraform provider. So a BTP Terraform provider is again a tool that you can use to manage the configuration of the platform at scale, in this case, leveraging a concept called infrastructure as code. So this is a declarative approach where you can define a target state. So what account structure you want to have, what services should be provisioned with what configuration. and then using Terraform, which is also an industry standard tool for this kind of task, you can ensure that this state is then created on the platform. Some of the benefits that you have here are consistency, scalability. You have the configuration defined as code. That means you can use it with Git or another versioning tool, and it allows for collaboration and is also automatically some kind of documentation of the intended state of your configuration. Next slide. Then we also have the SAP Automation Pilot. So this is a tool that allows you to configure lots of automation solutions. So on the one hand, you have a lot of predefined content in there that you can leverage and that you can adjust to your needs. But then you can also build custom commands. And a scenario that you could imagine is, for example, setting up configuration to monitor your databases, and then depending on signals, react and restart systems, or trigger notifications on the alert notification service, and things like this. So these are just some of the tools. Of course, everything is building on top of APIs that we have in the platform, and you can also directly interface with the APIs. So if you want to build your own automation solutions, that is also an avenue that's available to you using the platform APIs. And in the end, it's not about making a choice for one or the other, or BTP Cockpit versus automation, but rather you can mix and match all of these tools to your needs. And by that, really make your life as an administrator a lot easier and operate the platform at scale. So lastly, allow me to also make a quick plug for our BTP trial offering. So here you have a trial environment available at no cost to you, which allows you to explore a wide selection of the administrative tools and capabilities that we talked about, as well as foundation services that were covered before. It's really a good way to quickly get started and get your hands dirty, trying out some of the tools that we offer. And with that, back to Arne.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that was an awesome presentation of all those capabilities of BTP where often nobody talks about, but it's really the secure and reliable foundation under the services in the app dev integration and data and analytics and AI capabilities of our platform. And I think this is the overview slide that I also used in the overview presentation at the first session of this series. And I hope that we were able, I know that's a huge portfolio of different services and we were not able to cover everyone, but I hope that with that we were able to give you a great overview about those basic foundational capabilities that lie under all those great services on top that we provide with the platform. And many, many thanks to all of the speakers, all of the great experts here that they took the time to explain you their services and portfolios a little bit more. And maybe we have also some time for questions, Tanya. I don't know if you have any questions that we can directly give to our speakers as we have 7 minutes left.
It is really amazing. So first of all, let me also thank you for the fantastic job that you did. You really managed to cover such a broad range of topics in a short amount of time, and yet everything was clear and insightful. Truly impressive. Thank you so much. We actually only have one question left unanswered. That is the request for the link to the runtime guide.
We will put that definitely underneath the video in YouTube so that you can directly have the that's will be there. I promise.
Thank you. So apart from that, I think no question is left unanswered. So maybe you want to unshare and so Okay, there's a question. Any learning journeys for administration?
Yeah, so in this case, let me answer that question. We will also provide a link underneath the session video to our guidance, the BTP guidance framework, where you will find on the one hand side the guides to the administrative guidelines and also then the links to the learning journeys that are available for the different roles that will work with the platform.
Great. What I can also do is I can share the links to the we did three presentations on the guidance framework. So maybe I can share the links. There's one for everyone and one particularly for administrators. That could be of particular interest. I will share that in a second in the chat. So give me a second. Any other questions in the meantime? Here we go. Here we go. That's the one for administrators, and the other ones will follow. So I think you did an absolutely amazing job by managing that even under the established time. So if there are no further questions, and even if any questions come up after the session, you might know, just post them in the comments area underneath this video, and our experts will answer them within short time. Then let me thank you for joining us. I hope you had a lot of value from this session. I hope to see you again. Tomorrow there's another session or next week. And with this, have a great day, great evening, depending on where you are.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.